Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we've got Nocturne coming in, and I'm pretty excited because I think Shadow Isles is certainly one of my favorite regions. So let's hope he's good. Let's hope we find something out. This is the first one where I have actually seen the cards before. So this isn't a complete live reaction. I've had an hour or so, I think. That's very loud. Hold on. This is way too loud. Way too loud. Okay, I think that's a little better. Maybe that's still a little too loud. Okay, first card. Shroud of Darkness. It's a 1-mana burst speed spell. The next time you summon an ally this round, give it 1/0 and spell shield just for this round. Okay, interesting card. We said about the keyword that all these cards have with Nocturne. I've actually forgotten the name of it. Hold on. Nightfall. So with Nightfall, obviously I did mention that we're going to need probably 1-mana burst speed spells. And I think the only one that was, really playable, there's the Absorb Soul. And, but maybe more so you'd want to go for like Sapling Toss. Are the two 1-mana burst speed spells in Shadow Isles already. So I did think that they'd probably need to introduce it. Shroud of Darkness is certainly an interesting one to give. Obviously, it's quite aggressive. And, outside of just this kind of thing, what else could this fit in? Maybe like Zed coming down on round 3. You play this with Zed, you get a 4/2 Zed that has spell shield, so you're definitely getting in like the one attack with the quick attack. It could work there. But I think it is more geared towards these kind of aggressive Shadow Isles deck with Nightfall, if I had to guess. But overall, it's a solid card that might see some play in those decks. So that's Shroud of Darkness. And as we can see, on it goes to Nocturne. Nocturne is a 4-mana 5/3, the same as Ash, for comparison. And he has Fearsome. Nightfall, so obviously we need to play something before he comes down. To get this, grant an enemy vulnerable and give enemies -1/0 this round. And his level up is you've attacked with 5+ Nightfall allies, which is certainly an interesting ability. And so let's think about Nocturne. He is the same stat line as Ash, and obviously giving something vulnerable is pretty good. With Sejuani we've seen it's a pretty strong ability in general, and giving enemies -1/0 this round, also pretty good. The fact that it's not You've Seen is pretty solid as well, although, we're going to have to see if there are more Nightfall allies, but we'll keep going and see, let's see what Nocturne's other leveled up condition is as well. So here we get kind of the perfect combo. They got Maokai, you use it on Maokai, you drag Maokai, who's now got 0 attack with Nocturne, and away you go. The Nightfall thing looks pretty cool as well, as does his level up. I really like this level up. So, hold on. So this is Nocturne's leveled up version. He becomes a 4-mana 6/4 Fearsome. Other allies have Fearsome. When you play a unit, give enemies -1/0 this round. I'm going to get into it a bit later when, we're going to go onto Twitter and get the reveal and that. And I'll talk about all the cards there. But, just very quick impression. Other allies have Fearsome. Like, Cythria is a good card. And so this is a strong ability to have on any card. Particularly in an aggressive deck that's going to, probably want a lot of units on the board. And when you play a unit, give enemies -1 this round. Pretty strong as well. You're developing your board whilst forcing the opponent, to lose anything. If you're in like a board matchup, where they've got things on board, you got things on board, Nocturne is just a great way to end the game in general. And so, general impression is pretty strong, straight up. You see, he gives everything Fearsome. We all attack. It's all good. Unspeakable Horror. Drain 1 from anything. Nightfall. Create a random Nightfall card in hand. So obviously, straight away, everyone I think it's probably thinking of Varfeast, although this can go face. Drain 1 from anything. It can go face. It can go your face in a weird kind of way. Not sure why you'd ever want to do that, but the fact that you can go face with it is really nice. Nightfall, create a random Nightfall card in hand. So this will definitely be played in a Nocturne deck, I would have thought. But the question will become, will it be played? Would you play this over Val Feast in other decks? I don't think so. I think in like a control deck, you'd rather have Val Feast that's doing it sort of all in one, and you're getting the creature in one. And obviously, it's going to depend on what the other Nightfall cards are as well, of course. But Unspeakable Horror, I think a pretty good card. Val Feast is a good card, so a Val Feast that can go face is also pretty good. So yeah, you get a card, keep him alive. That, I believe, is a 4-mana burst spell that just created a Mistwraith. But we shall see on the Twitter video. And yeah, you get Fearsome. Yeah, we get it. So that's Nocturne. Seems pretty cool, straight up. And yeah, now we'll go to the Twitter sheet, see what other cards there are there for us to review. So here are all the cards. For Nocturne, we can see him on the left with his Unspeakable Horror, and 3 other cards for us to evaluate. Well, 2 of them we've seen, but 1 other card for us to evaluate as well. So let's talk first. Well, let's do Nocturne last. We'll go from the right-hand side down. So first, let's start with the card that we haven't seen, which is Stalking Shadows. Pick a follower from the top 4 cards in your deck. Draw it, shuffle the rest into the deck, then create an ephemeral copy in hand. So, Stalking Shadows. For me, the obvious comparison level here is with Shared Spoils. And I think when you look at this card, it is just so much better than Shared Spoils. They're both burst 2-mana cards that, both draw you a unit. But the fact that Stalking Shadows doesn't require 1, the Plunder. 2 is giving you a choice of the one you want, and then is also giving you an ephemeral copy of that unit in hand. And obviously you know that you're getting an ephemeral unit, ephemeral copy of it in hand, so you're probably going to pick something that's going to be impactful on the turn it comes down, rather than something that would require multiple turns to be good. Stalking Shadows requires you to play the deck in a certain, to build a deck in a certain way. Obviously you're going to want a deck that has mostly units in it. This wouldn't make sense in a heavy control spell-based deck, of course, because then, if there isn't a follower in the top 4 cards of your deck, I'm assuming that you just lost 2 mana for nothing. But if you do have a lot of creatures, which I think that the point of this card is, then obviously you're going to find a creature that can be quite good. And obviously it's very good for Nightfall as well, being a 2-mana burst speed spell. You don't give them back priority. You could also draw a card that is very good. And the fact that you kind of get like 1.5 cards, right? You're not getting 2 because 1 has ephemeral, but I mean you could have Deathmark as well, and Deathmark it and use it in that way. It just seems like a very, very solid card that will be played, as I say, in certain decks, in certain creature-based decks. Shadow Isles does have card draw already in Glimpse, so you're gonna have to decide whether Glimpse is better or whether you'd rather Stalking Shadows for the extra ephemeral copy. If you're in a Nightfall deck, you might want to pick Stalking Shadows, I think, because of its burst speed, the fact that it's proactive, and obviously Nightfall's whole thing is that you're being very proactive. It's a very proactive approach to the game. I think you'd go for Stalking Shadows, but it might be close, because Glimpse is obviously a very good card for basically just sort of being a mini deny on a lot of their value. And so we're it's going to be a choice between the two, as I don't think you're probably going to find a deck where you'd want to fit both in. And Stalking Shadows, might go into a Nightfall deck, and then it's going to be a choice whether people want Glimpse or whether they want Stalking Shadows. It's also going to depend on what you can find an ephemeral copy of that you think, yeah, this is worth the investment. Obviously, it's going to be stuff with summon effects, play effects, are the obvious things that come to mind. I mean, there's so many in the game that, pick one. But also something that probably isn't too costly either. Like, if you do this for an Avarice and Hearthguard and you get an ephemeral Avarice and Hearthguard, that doesn't feel that great. Yeah, you might get in 5 damage and you get the effect of the summon and the +1/+1, but that's not that great. It's probably going to have to be smaller than in mana than that. But the fact that you get a choice is really nice as well. So overall, I'd say a pretty solid card. Definitely better than some other cards like Shared Spoils that do a similar thing. So I think Stalking Shadows could see play in decks. Its only problem is it's competing with Glimpse, and people might prefer to have Glimpse. So that's kind of my evaluation on Stalking Shadows. Shroud of Darkness, a 1-mana burst speed spell. The next time you summon an ally this round, give it 1/0 inch spell shield. As I say, I think this will be a heavy include in the Nightfall decks. I think this is exactly the kind of thing that you would need in a Nightfall deck. This card, goes pretty well with the 2/1 that we saw yesterday. It obviously makes it a 5/1 with spell shield on turn 2 with Fearsome. That's pretty good. If you can deal 5 damage on turn 2, that's pretty strong in a way, and so that's really good. And I think Shroud of Darkness will just have to be in there for being a burst speed 1-mana Shadow Elf spell. As I say, you might want to put Sapling Toss and cards like that in there. In fact, I think Sapling Toss would definitely be in there for you to play proactively, and then play, a Nightfall card on the same round, and then on a defensive round, and then on the attacking round, you obviously get the Sapling as well, which is going to help you deal more damage as well. So Shroud of Darkness is a card. Again, I would say that both these cards, solid cards, that we'll see. I mean, if Nightfall is any good, we'll see a lot of play. But we'll definitely see play in Nightfall decks, I would have thought. Stalking Shadows is a card that could be very good, and I might be underrating it. It could also just be worse than Glimpse, and no one really plays it because it's just a worst option. So we'll see. Rise and Mists is a 4-mana burst speed spell. Summon a Mistwraith. Now, if you like playing Mistwraiths and you want to build an all-in Mistwraith deck, then you'll play this card, of course. Otherwise, 4 mana for a... Let's say it's 4 mana for a 3/2, right? Let's even give you the advantage if you've already played one Mistwraith. It's a burst speed, which does help. You can get off surprise blocks. You can attack without giving them priority. But, compare this to, say, Concussive Palm. And it's just a lot... It's not a lot worse, but it is worse. I think this card is okay. I think some people might look at this card and think it's absolute garbage. I actually think it's okay. Particularly if you're in an all-in Mistwraith Shadow Isles deck. And if you're playing the full Wraithcaller Mistwraith... If you're playing Wraithcaller and Mistwraiths... Any deck that does that will probably play Rise and Mists. Any deck outside of that will probably not do that. And that's pretty much all there is to say. They seem to be going all in on this Fearsome idea, and I really, really like that. You might think that this would synergize pretty well with Nocturne, but obviously Nocturne's level up gives everything Fearsome anyway, so you don't really need other cards with Fearsome necessarily, because your hope is that you're going to get leveled up Nocturne to do that for you. So I don't think Rise and Mist would really go in that deck. But any deck that plays Wraithcaller and Mistwraiths, which there have been decks like that in the past, then they probably would try and fit in Rise and Mist, maybe. So yeah, we'll see. Nocturne's Unspeakable Horror. As I say, I think in aggressive decks, you would play this. You'd play this over Vile Feast if you're an aggressive deck. Would you? You'd definitely play it in a Nocturne deck, obviously. The drain one from anything, yeah, you probably would. You probably would. Prankster Burn type decks might play this as well instead, so that they can just drain one from the face, but have, a versatile... The versatility is really, really, really good. And that 1 damage could literally be the difference between winning and losing. It often won't be, but it could be. And, it's very versatile, and, Nightfall, creating an extra card in hand. The thing is, Vile Feast is good, because often you're picking off something that is... where you're getting a favorable trade either way. And the Spider is kind of like a little added bonus. So Unspeakable Horror keeps most, I would say, of the power level of Vile Feast. But... potentially gives you even more, the fact that it can go face, and then you can get a random Nightfall card in hand. Again, the Nightfall cards that we've seen have been, I would say that 2 of them were okay and 1 of them was very bad, and those are the only 3 that we've seen apart from Nocturne itself. But you're not going to get Nocturne from this, so you're going to get... There will be more. There must be more, and I'll explain why in a second. But I would say if you can get the 1 mana card or even the 3 mana card, you won't feel necessarily terrible by it. The fact that they can, the 3 mana card can drain face as well. The little owl guy is, you could probably find a lot of spots where, you can play Unspeakable Horror, and then, having a little 1 mana card that can turn into a 4/1 is pretty good. That helps level up Nocturne. So I'd say overall pretty okay. But if you get that 5 mana horse, that's when you're gonna feel bad about this. And of course, we'll have to see what the other Nightfall allies are like. So let's get finally onto Nocturne himself. So he is 5/3, fearsome though, which is, as I say, Ash's stat line. Now, if we compare him to Ash, it's kind of interesting because he does have fearsome, which means he can't get chump blocked. So he's only going to get blocked by things that can kill him, right? Straight up. Now, Ash has the advantage of being in, of course, the region that is very good for combat tricks. Has the best combat tricks in the game. The Elixir of Iron and the like. If Nocturne gets grasped, you've technically got 1 mana up, but they feel pretty good that they just grasped your Nocturne, and you probably feel pretty bad about it overall, because the threat to like spell level, and they drain 3 as well. So there's a lot of things that trade into 3 health in the game. Get Excited, Gotcha, as I say, Grasp, and those 3 are, especially Get Excited and Grasp, have been played pretty much very consistently throughout the entire game's life, and they're just good cards that will still continue to be run to this day. So that's obviously a big problem for Nocturne. Can you find another region? What region would you pair him with that can potentially give him the chance to survive those things? That will be the question. But I think that might be it might be a little overrated as well for how much, like, Get Excited and Grasp are very specific examples that not every time when it does happen, you're going to feel pretty bad. But both of those answers, as I say, Grasp is 5 mana, so you have technically won the mana trade, and Get Excited is forcing them to discard a card, which sometimes can be very awkward as well. And so, oftentimes the trade isn't that bad. You don't feel terrible by it. Them drawing Gotcha on the turn and 2 mana Gotchaing you is really the only way that you probably feel terrible about it, where you've just lost the game potentially. But that really is it, I think. And so I think Nocturne, you play him on turn 4, he's pretty strong, he counts towards his own Nightfall allies. The only thing is, are you going to be able to generate enough small, and I will say probably spells, to where you can attack with all these Nightfall allies going off? Now, I'm not sure. I assume that it is just any ally with Nightfall, and you don't necessarily have to have triggered that Nightfall to get this level up. And you've attacked with 5+ Nightfall allies, which means if one thing attacks multiple times, it will count multiple times, I'm assuming. And if that is the case, and as I say, we need to see what the other Nightfall allies and other Nightfall cards will be, because if they're strong, then Nocturne will be very good. If they're as weak as the other ones, then he'll be okay. Not great, but okay. Because he is kind of forcing you down this one path where you're gonna have to play the Nightfall allies. There's no way around it. You're going to have to do it, and that's, if the cards are okay, then that's gonna feel fine, and if they're bad, like the 5 mana horse one, then it's gonna feel pretty bad. Now, the fact that the horse also had the attack from how many Nightfall allies you've already attacked with, and the fact that it was only 5 mana suggests to me that, like, there's definitely going to be a 2 mana one, I would have thought, and there might even be another like 1 mana one, or a couple 2 mana ones. There's just going to have to be, it seems, because there's no way you're going to level Nocturne up, and there's no way that card would even be close to playable if there weren't a lot of at least decent options for Nightfall. And so Nocturne, I think, is okay, but once he levels up, his ability is really strong. Now you're looking at 4 health. The fact he's got Fearsome, again, means he's only really going to get killed by stuff like that. Oh, I didn't even really talk about his Nightfall ability. Let's talk about that first. So this is actually pretty strong. Granting an enemy vulnerable. Not give, grant. So, better than Sejuani. Granting an enemy vulnerable and giving enemies -1 this round means that his first attack will almost certainly be free, which will obviously help him level up as well. So, you know, let's say you've gone turn 1 into the... Let's say you've found... Oh, let's say turn 2, you've played the little 1-drop, and you've attacked with it, so that's 1. And then on turn 3, you've played the 3-mana 1, and then on turn 4, you're attacking on evens. You play Nocturne into his Nightfall as well. You know, you've played Shroud of Darkness on Nocturne or whatever, and then, you know, you attack with all of them. That's 4, and then that means the next time he's flipping, and then he flips, and then your other eyes have Fearsome the next time that you attack. And you've got a 6/4 with Fearsome, and everything else you have as Fearsome, and anytime you play a unit, you give enemies -1 this round. This is a really strong combo on his leveled up condition. Like, this is what you want. Terror of the Tides is a similar card, and you might think, well, Terror of the Tides doesn't get played. The only reason Terror of the Tide doesn't get played is because it's, 9 mana, and, you know, you don't necessarily, like, you don't need cards in Deep that are that big when you've got, like, the Abyssal Eye, and you've got the 6-mana one that obliterates the thing. Like, those sea monsters anyway will carry you. And sometimes Joel Hunters will give you the Terror of the Tides, and that will win you the game. Thing is, there's no need to run a 9-mana card like that. When, you know, Nautilus will normally just... Like, you'll take over the game anyway. Like, it doesn't matter that you've got that card. But I will say that, you know, with the cards that we've seen, and there's kind of sort of generals, apart from Nocturne, and maybe Lulu as well a bit, but, you know, Tariq and Trundle seemed a bit slower, a bit like, you know, we're going to slow things down a bit. If it does end up being slower, then, you know, you might see Terror of the Tides as a one-off in deep decks. You know, if everything is slowed down to the point where, you know, you can reliably play a card on you know, that's 9 mana, normally anyway. So, yeah, don't discount that either. And this ability is just really strong. And when you play a unit as well, so if your opponent has a full board and you don't, you can just say to them, I've got Fearsome on everything, and now your units don't have any attack. You know, if you just kept playing units that turn, you know, with something like Stalking Shadows, you know, with Nocturne leveled up, really, really good. You know, particularly if you got the little, like, 4/1 bird thing. If you got the little 1-mana bird that got released, like Stalking Shadows, like, you've got leveled up Nocturne, you go Stalking Shadows, you get the bird, so you've got 2 1-mana birds that, you know, will both trigger their Nightfalls because you've played Stalking Shadows. So now you've got, like, 14 damage on the board with just 3 units. Everything on their board now has -2. All your things have Fearsome, and that's, like, you know, if you've only got Nocturne. If you've got other units as well, then of course you're just rolling it. So I think Nocturne himself, I would say, is probably around, maybe a little lower than Lulu. So far, I would rate them sort of like Lulu, Nocturne, Tariq, Trundle would be sort of my ordering for champions so far. Let me know if you disagree with that, by the way. I'd love to know, but that's sort of where I'd order them. Nocturne's only problem is he fits in a very specific deck, and if the other Nightfall allies we get revealed are really bad, then Nocturne will be knocked down to, you know, unplayable. What's the point? But I think overall, he's got a good champion card. He's pretty strong on his own. He has a nice ability. Like, you know, if you get the Nightfall on him, and they, you know, grasp it or whatever, you've given something vulnerable still, and they've grasped, and they, you know, you've made a good mana trade. So that's pretty good overall, and I think that is where we're going to end it today, 24 minutes or thereabout. And yeah, so thank you for watching. Have a really nice day. My name's been Chris. I'll see you next time.